At work, she joked, our boss is handsome but probably gay. He heard and pulled her close. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. But what happens when a simple joke at work about the boss leads to something unexpected? Let's find out. Laney had always found the office a place of awkward tension. The kind of tension where you want to belong, but you're never quite sure if you fit in. She was a waitress, after all, working her way up in a world of tech geeks and sharp-dressed executives. She didn't mind. It was a job, and it paid the bills. But today, something felt different. She sat with her colleagues in the break room, laughing nervously as they sipped coffee. They were all chatting about the upcoming office party, the one where everyone was supposed to mingle and get to know their colleagues. Our boss is handsome, but probably gay, Laney joked, swirling her coffee around in her cup. I mean, who would stay single and look that good, right? Her coworkers chuckled, but Laney immediately regretted the words that slipped out. She wasn't the kind of person to gossip about others, but she'd been nervous about the upcoming office event, and the words just came out. What she didn't know was that Samuel, the CEO of the company, had just walked into the room. He was standing in the doorway, leaning against it, his arms crossed. His sharp eyes caught her immediately, and for a moment, Laney froze. Did he hear? She didn't know if she should apologize or laugh it off, but Samuel took a slow step toward her, his gaze never leaving her. Did I hear that correctly? He asked, his voice smooth, but with an edge that made Laney's heart skip a beat. The room went silent. She looked up at him, panic rising in her chest. I didn't mean anything by it, she stammered, feeling her cheeks flush. It's just a joke. But Samuel didn't move away. Instead, he took another step closer. Laney's breath caught in her throat. So you think I'm handsome, he said with a slight smile, though there was something different in his eyes now, something she couldn't place. He leaned down, closer to her, and in that moment, Laney was sure her heart was about to beat out of her chest. You think I'm handsome, but gay? He repeated, his voice softer now, almost teasing. He didn't give her a chance to respond. Instead, he gently pulled her close, wrapping an arm around her waist. Laney's mind raced. This was the CEO, the man she had never dared to speak to. And yet here he was, pulling her close in front of everyone. She felt every muscle in her body tense, unsure whether she should push him away or let him pull her in. Samuel's eyes softened for just a moment as he studied her, before he let go. Let's talk more about this, he said with a smirk. Laney was left standing there, breathless, her mind a whirlwind. Was he flirting with her? Or was this just another one of his power plays? All she knew was that she had never felt so out of control, and it both terrified and intrigued her. Laney stood frozen in the middle of the room, her heart racing as she watched Samuel, the CEO, pull back and smirk at her. The air felt thick with tension, and for a moment, she wasn't sure if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life or if he was actually flirting with her. Her colleagues, still sitting at the table, had fallen silent, watching the scene unfold. Laney's palms felt clammy, and she could barely form a coherent thought as she tried to process what had just happened. Samuel wasn't just the boss. He was the CEO, a man who commanded respect and whose presence seemed to suck all the air out of the room. And here he was, pulling her close, teasing her in front of everyone. This wasn't how things were supposed to go at the office. You know, Laney, Samuel said, his voice low and smooth. I have to admit, I'm surprised. I didn't think anyone would joke about me like that, but here you are, making it a little too interesting. Laney swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. She had never felt so exposed. I didn't mean to offend you, she managed to stammer, her voice sounding smaller than she intended. It was just a joke. I didn't think. I know, Samuel cut in, his smile widening slightly, though there was something in his eyes that made Laney hesitate. But now I'm curious. What else do you think about me? The question caught her off guard. She wasn't sure if it was the way he was looking at her or the fact that she was still standing way too close to him, but she suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to step back. Yet, she couldn't. Her body refused to obey her mind's command to move. Samuel tilted his head slightly, studying her as if he was trying to figure out if she was being genuine. I can see it in your eyes, he continued. You don't have to act all nervous. There's something about you that's different from the rest of the staff. I like that. Laney felt a heat rise in her cheeks. Was he complimenting her? Or was he simply playing some power game? She wasn't sure. But there was no denying the attraction that flickered in the air between them. I didn't mean anything by it, she said quickly, her voice almost a whisper now. It's just, sometimes I don't know what to say in front of everyone, so I joke. It's a way to cope, I guess. Samuel's expression softened slightly, and for a brief moment, Laney saw a hint of something more than just the CEO, maybe a man who had his own fears and vulnerabilities. You know, he said slowly, I get it. Being in charge isn't always easy. Sometimes, people think they know you, but they don't. They don't see the pressure you're under. Laney blinked, unsure of how to respond. Was Samuel actually opening up to her? This wasn't what she had expected at all. And to be honest, she didn't know how to handle it. But that's not the point, Samuel continued, his voice firm but gentle now. I want to see more of that honesty from you. You've got potential, Laney. You're different from the others. And I want to see if you can rise to the challenge. Laney's heart skipped a beat. What was he talking about? Rise to the challenge? What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling slightly despite herself. Samuel leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm offering you something. A chance to prove yourself. I'm sure you're tired of being stuck in the same position, right? Laney felt a surge of emotions rush through her. Was he really offering her a promotion? Or was this just some cruel joke? I don't know what to say, she said honestly, her mind racing. I didn't expect this. That's the point, Samuel replied, his smile returning, this time a little more genuine. I like surprises. And I think you're going to surprise yourself too. Laney took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She had spent years dreaming of a moment like this, but now that it was happening, she wasn't sure she was ready. What if she failed? What if she couldn't live up to his expectations? But before she could think too much about it, Samuel handed her a card. I'll be in the office all afternoon. Come by when you have a moment. We'll talk more about this. Laney took the card, her fingers brushing his for a split second. Okay, she said quietly, her voice barely audible. As she turned to leave, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. Everything had changed in the span of just a few minutes. The office, which had once felt like a place where she could hide behind her jokes and avoid attention, now seemed like a world of possibilities, if only she was brave enough to step forward. Samuel watched her leave, a slight glint of something unreadable in his eyes. He had no idea how far this would go, but he had a feeling it was going to be interesting. As for Laney, she wasn't sure what to think. All she knew was that the path ahead had just become a lot more uncertain, but also, in some strange way, more exciting. Laney stood in front of Samuel's office, her hand hovering over the door handle. The card he had given her earlier felt heavier now, as if it were the key to something much larger than just a promotion. She had barely slept the night before, her mind racing with the possibilities. Was he serious about offering her a chance? Or was this just another power play to keep her in check? To remind her of her place in the company? She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Samuel was seated at his desk, his usual confident posture softened by the absence of the usual executive hustle. He looked up as she entered, his eyes immediately catching hers. I was wondering when you'd show up, he said with a smile, the kind that made Laney's heart race, but also gave her a sense of reassurance. She stepped inside, her footsteps slow as she approached his desk. I wasn't sure if I should even come, she admitted, her voice a little shakier than she intended. Samuel's gaze softened, and he motioned for her to sit. There's no need to be nervous. I just wanted to talk. I think you have a lot of potential, Laney, more than you know. His words were like a balm to her anxious thoughts. He had seen something in her, something that made him want to offer her a real opportunity, not just another empty gesture. But I don't know what you're expecting from me, she said, still unsure of how to navigate this new territory. Samuel leaned forward, his expression serious now. What I expect is simple. I want you to take a chance on yourself. I see the way you work, how you handle things under pressure. It's not about being the loudest or the flashiest. It's about being real, about owning who you are and pushing past the doubt. I think you can handle more responsibility, Laney. I think you could even be in charge of a whole project, if you're willing to step up. Laney felt a rush of emotions. This was the moment she had been waiting for, but it came with the weight of uncertainty. Could she really do this? Could she handle the expectations that Samuel was placing on her? "I've always wanted more," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "But I've always been too scared to go for it. I don't want to mess this up." Samuel smiled, a knowing look in his eyes. "It's okay to be scared. It's the only way you'll grow. But here's the thing. I'm not asking you to do this alone. I'll be here to guide you. But I can't do the work for you. You have to take the leap yourself." Laney nodded, feeling the weight of his words sink in. This wasn't just about the job. It was about her ability to see her own worth and step into something bigger than she had ever imagined. But the fear still lingered, like a shadow over her resolve. "I'm scared," she admitted, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "What if I fail? What if I let you down?" Samuel's expression softened, and for the first time, Laney saw a different side of him, the man behind the CEO facade. "You won't fail. And even if you do, we'll figure it out. The important thing is that you try, that you show up for yourself." Laney felt her heart swell with something she hadn't expected, hope. For the first time in a long time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she could do this. "Okay," she said, her voice firmer now. "I'm ready." Samuel nodded, a smile creeping onto his face. "Good. I knew you would be." The conversation shifted then, from the daunting weight of expectations to practical details. How she would take on more responsibilities, how he would support her through the process. But through it all, one thing was clear. Samuel wasn't just offering her a chance to rise in the company. He was offering her a chance to believe in herself, to step into her own power. As Laney left his office that day, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was someone who had the potential to do something incredible. And with that thought in mind, she walked out of the office with a new sense of purpose, ready to take on whatever came next. Laney spent the next few days feeling like she was walking on air. Samuel's words echoed in her mind, a constant reminder that she was capable of more than she had ever believed. She had been given a chance, a real opportunity to prove herself, and she couldn't afford to waste it. At first, it was the small things that made a difference, taking on extra tasks without hesitation, speaking up more in meetings, offering ideas that had once seemed too bold for someone like her. It felt strange, almost foreign, but with each passing day, Laney grew more confident. She knew she was on the right path. But despite all the progress she was making, something lingered in the back of her mind, the unease of what she had felt that day in Samuel's office. Was he expecting something more from her? Something beyond just work? The thought nagged at her as she settled into her new routine, a mix of excitement and fear clouding her judgment. Then came the office gala. It was an event that everyone had been talking about for weeks, a high-profile gathering where the company's top leaders would showcase their accomplishments, and where people in the industry could make valuable connections. Laney had attended a few company events before, but this one felt different. This time, she wasn't just an observer. She was part of the team, a contributing member who had been given responsibility and trust. As she dressed for the evening, she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to happen. She had chosen a dress that was elegant but understated, nothing too flashy, yet enough to make her feel confident. When she arrived at the event, the atmosphere was electric. Guests in designer suits and glamorous gowns moved through the venue, chatting and laughing, the sounds of clinking glasses and soft music filling the air. Laney felt a little out of place at first, unsure of where she should stand or who she should talk to. But then she saw him, Samuel, standing near the bar, talking to a group of investors. He looked every bit the powerful CEO, dressed in a sharp tuxedo, his demeanor cool and composed. Laney's heart skipped a beat as she made her way toward him, trying to steady her breath. She hadn't expected to feel so nervous, not after everything she had accomplished in the past week. As she approached, Samuel caught sight of her, his eyes briefly flickering with recognition before he excused himself from the conversation. "Laney," he said with a smile, his voice smooth and welcoming. "You look stunning." The compliment made her blush, and she quickly looked away, unsure how to respond. "Thank you," she muttered, feeling her palms sweat. "You're welcome," he replied, his gaze lingering on her for a moment longer than she expected. "I'm glad you could make it." For a moment, there was an awkward silence between them, as if neither of them knew what to say next. Samuel seemed to pick up on her discomfort, his smile softening. "You've been doing great work lately," he said, his voice warm. "I'm impressed." Laney blinked, taken aback by the sincerity in his tone. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She had worked hard to get to this point, but hearing it from Samuel made her feel like she had truly earned her place. "You're more than just capable," Samuel continued, his words catching her off guard. "You've got potential. You're someone who can go far in this company." Laney felt a lump form in her throat, the weight of his praise almost too much to bear. She had always struggled with self-doubt, but Samuel's belief in her made her wonder if she really could achieve everything she had ever dreamed of. Before she could say anything, Samuel leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "But there's one more thing you should know, Laney," he said, his tone serious. She felt her pulse quicken. What was he about to say? "You've impressed me," he said, pausing for effect. "But there's a lot more to this company than just the work you do. It's about building relationships, understanding the people you're working with. And that's something I'd like to help you with." Laney frowned slightly, confused by his words. "What do you mean?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Samuel smiled knowingly. "I'm offering you more than just a job, Laney. I'm offering you a chance to grow, not just in your career, but in every aspect of your life. This is about more than work. It's about understanding what it takes to be a leader." Laney felt her breath catch. Was he offering her a mentorship, a way to advance even further? Before she could respond, Samuel stepped back, his gaze intense. "But it's up to you," he said, his voice low. "You can take this opportunity or let it slip away. The choice is yours." Laney stood there, the weight of his words settling in her chest. She had been given an opportunity, a real chance to grow, but it came with the responsibility of making decisions that could change her life. She knew she had to choose wisely. As the night went on, Laney found herself lost in thought, her mind racing with possibilities. She had come so far, but the road ahead was still uncertain. She had always been afraid of taking risks, but now, with Samuel's words in her mind, she realized that it was time to stop holding back. She was ready to step into a future that she had once thought was beyond her reach. Laney spent the next few days reflecting on Samuel's words, her thoughts swirling with uncertainty and excitement. His offer was unlike anything she had expected, and she found herself torn between the comfort of staying in her current position and the challenge of stepping into something more. She knew this was a turning point in her career, but could she truly rise to the occasion? That night, she lay awake in bed, the moonlight streaming through the window, her mind racing. Samuel had given her an opportunity, but it wasn't just about the work. It was about her ability to grow and evolve, something she had never fully believed in herself. The next morning, she walked into the office with a sense of purpose. She couldn't afford to waste any more time doubting herself. It was time to take control of her future. As she entered the office, her eyes caught Samuel's from across the room. He gave her a brief nod, his expression unreadable, but Laney could see the faint trace of something in his eyes. Recognition? Expectation? She wasn't sure, but it made her heart race. The day was busy, filled with meetings and deadlines, but Laney couldn't focus on anything but the conversation she had had with Samuel. He had trusted her with this opportunity, and now it was time to prove that she could handle it. She worked diligently, staying focused on the tasks at hand, but her mind kept drifting back to Samuel's words. "It's up to you." By the end of the day, Laney was exhausted, both physically and mentally. But there was one thing she knew for certain. She was ready to take that leap. She walked over to Samuel's office, her heart pounding in her chest. As she knocked on the door, she felt a sense of anticipation building inside her. Samuel looked up from his desk as she entered, his eyes meeting hers with a calm but intense gaze. "I've been thinking about what you said," Laney began, her voice steady, though there was a nervousness she couldn't quite hide. "And I'm ready. I want to take on the responsibility. I want to prove myself." Samuel's eyes softened slightly, and he leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I knew you would come around," he said, his voice low and approving. "But I want you to understand something. This isn't going to be easy. There will be challenges, things you won't be prepared for. But that's where you'll grow the most." Laney nodded, her resolve firming. "I understand," she said. "I'm ready for whatever comes." Samuel smiled, a rare, genuine smile that made Laney's heart skip a beat. "Good. We start tomorrow. I'm putting you in charge of the new project. You'll be working closely with the team, and I expect you to lead them. There will be people who doubt you, but you'll prove them wrong. And I'll be there, guiding you, but the rest is up to you. Laney felt a surge of pride and fear mixed together. She had always dreamed of being in charge, of proving that she was capable, but this was real now. There was no going back. Thank you for believing in me, she said quietly. Samuel nodded, standing up and offering her a handshake. You earned it, Laney. Now it's time to show everyone what you're made of. As she left his office, Laney felt a new sense of determination wash over her. This was her chance to prove herself, not just to Samuel, but to everyone around her, including herself. The weight of the responsibility was heavy, but she wasn't backing down. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she would no longer hide behind jokes or self-doubt. Laney was ready to lead, ready to rise to the challenge that Samuel had given her. And as she walked back to her desk, she couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. This was just the beginning. The following days were a whirlwind for Laney. As soon as Samuel had entrusted her with the new project, she was thrown into the deep end. It felt like everything was happening all at once. Team meetings, deadlines, and the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. But she had made a promise to herself, and she wasn't about to let fear or doubt get in the way. She was going to prove herself. The project she was now leading was one of the company's most important initiatives, and Samuel had made it clear that there were high expectations. Laney spent hours researching, strategizing, and planning every detail. It was overwhelming at times, but with each challenge, she felt herself growing more confident. She knew she had to rely on the team around her, but she also knew that the ultimate success or failure would fall on her shoulders. Despite the pressure, Laney couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as she watched her team come together. They were focused, motivated, and most importantly, they trusted her. She had earned their respect, and that was something she hadn't expected so soon. As the days turned into weeks, Laney started to see the fruits of her labor. The project was progressing smoothly, and the results were better than she had anticipated. But just as she began to feel like she was in control, a new obstacle appeared. During one of the weekly check-ins, one of the senior executives, Mark, voiced his concerns about the direction of the project. Laney, I've been looking over the numbers, and frankly, I'm not sure this is the right approach, Mark said, his tone critical. We need to rethink the strategy before we go any further. Laney felt a knot form in her stomach. Mark was a well-respected figure in the company, and his opinion carried weight. She had expected some criticism, but hearing it so directly made her second-guess her decisions. I understand your concerns, Laney replied, trying to keep her voice steady. But I believe the strategy we've put in place is solid. We've made significant progress, and the team is aligned. Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. I'm not saying it's a failure, Laney, but you might want to consider revising it before it gets any further. The meeting ended on a tense note, and Laney was left standing there, feeling like her confidence had been shaken. She walked back to her office, replaying the conversation in her mind. Had she made a mistake? Was the project really heading in the wrong direction? She couldn't shake the feeling that she had just been given a reality check. Samuel had trusted her, but now, she wasn't so sure she had the answers. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time, the fear of failure creeping in. Later that afternoon, Samuel stopped by her office. He had been keeping an eye on the progress of the project, and Laney knew this was going to be another moment of judgment. But when he sat down across from her, there was no anger, no disappointment in his eyes, just calm understanding. You look like you've had a rough day, Samuel said, his voice gentle. What's going on? Laney hesitated for a moment, unsure how to express her frustration. It's Mark, she finally admitted. He thinks we need to change the direction of the project. He's questioning everything we've worked on, and I'm starting to doubt myself. Samuel leaned back in his chair, studying her for a moment before speaking. Mark's a valuable member of the team, but he doesn't have the full picture. He's not in the trenches like you are. Laney looked at him, confused. But what if he's right? What if the project isn't working? Samuel shook his head. You've been doing great, Laney. You've built a solid foundation, and no one can take that away from you. The most important thing now is to stay focused. Listen to feedback, yes, but don't let it make you lose sight of your vision. Laney felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Samuel was right. She had spent so much time worrying about making everyone else happy, but in doing so, she had started to lose sight of what she believed in. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about trusting her instincts and leading her team with confidence. "Thank you," Laney said, her voice steady once more. "I needed to hear that." Samuel smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "I'm always here if you need to talk. You've got this, Laney." With those words, Laney felt the final pieces fall into place. She wasn't alone in this. She had Samuel's support, and more importantly, she had her own confidence to rely on. The next day, Laney returned to the project with a renewed sense of purpose. She met with her team, explained the feedback from Mark, and together, they brainstormed new ideas to improve the project. It wasn't about abandoning the original plan, it was about making it stronger. By the end of the week, they had a revised strategy, and Laney felt more certain than ever that they were on the right track. As the project progressed, the results were undeniable. The company saw record growth, and Laney's leadership was recognized by everyone, including Mark, who eventually came around and acknowledged her success. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Laney had proven to herself and to others that she was capable of more than she ever imagined. She had embraced the challenge, faced her fears, and come out stronger on the other side. Weeks passed, and Laney's confidence continued to grow as she successfully led the project to completion. She had proven herself to her team, her colleagues, and even to herself, but the pressure didn't seem to ease up. The more successful she became, the higher the expectations placed on her, and she found herself questioning if she was truly ready for the next challenge. But there was something else, something more personal, that began to weigh on her. As much as she had thrived professionally, her relationship with Samuel had changed. At first, their interactions had been strictly professional, but lately, there had been a shift. The lines between mentor and something more had started to blur. It was subtle at first, glances that lingered too long, moments where Samuel would pull her aside, his words more encouraging than necessary, and the occasional smile that seemed to hold a deeper meaning. Laney couldn't help but wonder if Samuel saw her as more than just a capable employee. Was he starting to see her as something else? She tried to push the thought out of her mind, telling herself that she was overthinking things. Samuel had been nothing but supportive, and she had no reason to believe his intentions were anything but professional. Still, the idea that there might be more to their connection lingered in the back of her mind. It was on a particularly late evening when Laney's thoughts reached a boiling point. The office was nearly empty, the soft hum of the air conditioning the only sound filling the room. She had been working on a report when she heard the door to her office open. She looked up to see Samuel standing in the doorway, his usual confident demeanor softened by the late hour. "You're still here?" he asked, a hint of surprise in his voice. "I had a lot to finish," Laney replied, offering him a small smile. "I didn't realize how late it had gotten." Samuel stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "You're dedicated, I'll give you that," he said, walking over to her desk. "But don't you think you should take a break? You've been pushing yourself too hard lately." Laney sighed, rubbing her eyes. "I don't mind. I want to make sure everything is perfect." Samuel leaned against her desk, studying her. "You don't need to be perfect, Laney," he said softly. "You've already proven more than enough." His words were comforting, but there was something about the way he said them that made her heart race. It wasn't just about the work anymore. "I appreciate everything you've done for me," she said, her voice quieter now, almost hesitant. Samuel straightened up, his gaze lingering on her face. For a brief moment, the world around them seemed to stop. There was a tension in the air, thick and undeniable. "I believe in you, Laney," Samuel said, his voice low. "I've always believed in you." She looked up at him, searching his eyes for any sign of what he meant. Was he just talking about her work? Or was there something more? Before she could speak, Samuel took a step closer, and Laney felt her breath catch in her throat. "I've never been one to hide my feelings, and I don't want to start now," Samuel said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want you to doubt your worth, Laney. Not now, not ever." Laney's mind was racing. What was he saying? Was this a confession? She felt a mix of confusion and something else, something she couldn't quite place. "Samuel, she started, but her words were cut off as Samuel gently placed a finger on her lips. "You don't need to say anything," he said softly. "I'm just telling you what you need to hear." Laney stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't tell if this was the beginning of something new, or if it was simply a moment of vulnerability shared between two colleagues. She didn't know what to do with this sudden shift in their relationship. Samuel took a step back, his expression still calm, but with an unreadable glint in his eyes. "You're not alone in this," he said. "And you don't have to be perfect to be enough." Laney nodded slowly, trying to process everything that had just happened. She wasn't sure what to make of it, but one thing was clear. Samuel's support had always been there, and now, it felt like there was something more. The tension between them hung in the air, unanswered and unspoken, but Laney couldn't shake. The feeling that things had changed, and they couldn't go back to what they once were. As Samuel left her office that night, Laney remained seated at her desk, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She had always wanted to be seen, to be more than just a quiet face in the crowd, but now, she wasn't sure what to do with the attention that Samuel had given her. Was it just his leadership style, or was it something deeper? She didn't have the answers yet, but for the first time, she allowed herself to wonder if there could be something more between them, something that went beyond just work. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the thought linger before she pushed it aside, focusing on the tasks in front of her. She had come so far, and she wasn't about to let anything distract her from the goals she had set for herself. But deep down, she knew that whatever was happening between her and Samuel was far from over. The days following Samuel's confession were filled with a strange mix of anticipation and uncertainty. Laney threw herself into her work, determined to prove to herself that she could handle the challenges ahead. But every time she saw Samuel, a part of her couldn't help but wonder if there was more to their connection than just professional respect. It wasn't that she didn't value their working relationship, she did. But there was a nagging feeling in the back of her mind that she couldn't ignore. Samuel's words, his gestures, the way he seemed to notice her more than anyone else. Could it be that he was interested in something beyond just being her mentor? The thought left her feeling both excited and conflicted. She had never been one to mix business with personal matters, but something about Samuel felt different. He was kind, but there was also a certain intensity about him, a presence that couldn't be ignored. She had always admired his confidence, his ability to command a room, but now she found herself questioning if there was more to that admiration. One evening, as the office was winding down, Samuel invited Laney to join him for a late dinner. It was something he often did with key members of his team, but this time, it felt more personal. Laney hesitated for a moment, then agreed. After all, they had made progress on the project, and this could be another opportunity to learn from him. As they sat down at a quiet corner table in a chic restaurant, the atmosphere felt different from the office. There was no pressure, no formal agenda, just two people sitting across from each other, sharing a meal. "How are you holding up?" Samuel asked, his eyes warm with genuine concern. "I know this project has been a lot to handle." Laney smiled, appreciating his consideration. "I'm doing well," she said, taking a sip of her wine. "It's been challenging, but I feel like I'm finally starting to get the hang of it." Samuel leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving her. "You've been doing more than just getting the hang of it, Laney," he said, his voice softer now. "You've been thriving. I've seen a lot of growth in you, not just as a team leader, but as a person." Laney felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady but her heart racing. "It means a lot to hear that from you." Samuel's expression softened, and for a moment, there was a quiet between them, the kind that spoke volumes without needing to say anything. It was then that Laney realized how close they had become, how much she had started to rely on him, not just for professional advice, but for something more, something she wasn't sure how to define. "You know," Samuel said, breaking the silence, "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation the other night." Laney looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. "The one in my office?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "Yeah," Samuel replied, his eyes intense. "About how I believe in you." "I meant every word." Laney's breath caught in her throat. There was something in the way he said it, something that made her wonder if he wasn't just talking about her work. I don't know what to say," Laney whispered, feeling the weight of the moment. "You don't have to say anything," Samuel said softly, his voice almost a whisper now. "I just want you to know that I'm here for you. Not just as your boss, but as someone who believes in you, everything you can do, everything you'll become." Laney felt a shiver run down her spine, her pulse quickening. This wasn't just a compliment. This felt like something deeper, something more than just words. She had never felt this way before. Was it just the stress of the job? Or was there something more? Samuel, she started, but her words faltered. She wasn't sure what to say. She had never been good at expressing her feelings, especially when they were so complicated. Samuel reached across the table, his hand gently brushing hers. The touch sent a wave of warmth through her, and she looked up at him, meeting his gaze. You don't have to say anything, he repeated, his voice steady, reassuring. Just know that I see you. For who you are, and for everything you've accomplished. Laney felt a lump form in her throat. She had never been seen like this before, not by anyone, not even by herself. Samuel's words touched a part of her that she had kept hidden for so long, a part that wanted to be more, to be noticed, to be important. And in that moment, she realized that she was ready to take the next step, not just in her career, but in her relationship with Samuel. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, she was no longer the same person who had walked into this job months ago. She was stronger, more confident, and for the first time, she was ready to embrace everything that was coming her way. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Samuel smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. No need to thank me, he said softly. You've earned everything that's coming to you, Laney, and I believe you'll go far. They sat in silence for a moment, the world around them fading away as they shared the quiet understanding that had blossomed between them. It was a moment of connection, a moment that neither of them would forget. Weeks passed, and Laney felt herself stepping into a new rhythm. Her work was going better than ever, and the project she had taken the lead on had exceeded even her own expectations. Samuel's mentorship had been invaluable, and she felt more confident in her abilities than she had ever been before. The team respected her, and even Mark, the senior executive who had initially doubted her, had begun to acknowledge the success of the project. Laney had proven herself, but deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The dynamic between her and Samuel had shifted in ways she couldn't ignore. There were moments when their professional relationship blurred into something more personal, moments when the air between them seemed charged with unspoken feelings. Laney couldn't help but wonder if Samuel felt the same way she did. Was there more between them than just work? Or was she reading too much into the subtle glances and the quiet support he offered? One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Laney found herself sitting at her desk, finishing up some last-minute work. She had planned to leave early, but the pressure to finish everything perfectly had kept her there longer than she anticipated. She was so absorbed in her work that she didn't hear the door open, but she did notice the familiar presence standing in the doorway. Still here, Samuel's voice was soft, almost amused. Laney looked up, startled, and saw him leaning against the doorframe, his usual confident demeanor softened by the late hour. I didn't realize it was so late, Laney replied, her voice a little breathless. I just wanted to make sure everything was perfect. Samuel stepped into the room, his eyes studying her with a quiet intensity. You don't have to be perfect, Laney, he said, his voice calm but firm. You've done more than enough. Laney felt a wave of warmth at his words, but there was something else, something that lingered in the space between them. I know, she said, her voice softer now, but I want to keep proving myself. Samuel's gaze never left her as he walked closer to her desk. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, least of all to me, he said. You've already proven more than enough. Laney's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had always struggled with self-doubt, but Samuel's belief in her had been a constant source of strength. For the first time, she felt like maybe she was truly worthy of everything she had worked for. The tension between them was palpable now, and as Samuel stood next to her, Laney couldn't help but feel the pull, the quiet connection that had been growing between them for weeks. Samuel, Laney said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to do with all of this. She gestured to the work on her desk, but her words were about more than just the project. Samuel's eyes softened, and for a moment, he didn't say anything. Instead, he reached out, his hand gently brushing hers. The touch was light, but it sent a spark of warmth through her. You don't have to figure it all out right now, he said quietly. You've already come so far, Laney. I've always believed in you, and I'm here for you, no matter what. Laney looked up at him, her heart pounding. The weight of his words settled in her chest. and for a moment, she didn't know how to respond. But then something inside her shifted. She had spent so much time worrying about what was expected of her, about whether she was good enough. But now, in this quiet moment, she realized that she didn't need to have all the answers. What mattered was that she was here, that she had taken the chance, and that she was moving forward, no matter where it led. Samuel's hand lingered near hers, and in that moment, Laney knew that everything had changed. The project, the work, and even their relationship, everything had evolved into something deeper, something more than just professional. She wasn't sure where it was headed, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to find out. "Thank you," Laney said, her voice trembling slightly. "For everything." Samuel smiled, his eyes warm with something that was more than just admiration. "You've earned it, Laney," he said softly. "And you'll continue to earn it, every step of the way." As Laney looked at him, she felt a surge of gratitude and something else, something that made her heart race. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew that whatever happened, she had found her strength, and she was ready to face it. And as she walked out of the office that night, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks, she couldn't help but smile. She had stepped into a new chapter of her life, one where she wasn't afraid to take risks, to grow, and to trust that everything she had worked for was just the beginning.